Shalom. This video is about secular humanistic Judaism. What prompted me to want to talk about this was the death this week of Rabbi Sherwin Wein, who was the founder of secular humanistic Judaism. The paper said originally he was ordained as a Reform rabbi, but because of the Holocaust he lost his belief. And he began a synagogue without God. The paper said that instead of saying, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one," the Shema, they revere all that is best in humankind. In addition to that, there's a book on the bestsellers list of the New York Times, nonfiction, basically suggesting that religion is a net force for evil in the world, and we shouldn't have any religion, we shouldn't have any belief in God. So I want to undertake those two issues, whether Judaism can really have no God, and that it's right to pray to, we revere the best in humankind, and whether that in fact religion has been a net force for evil. Now, you could make the argument that religion has been a force for evil to some extent. If you think about the Crusades, the Pope-inspired action to fight the Muslims in Jerusalem led to the mass murder of many Jews, that the New Testament, we believe fictitiously saying that Jews responsible for the death of Jesus, led to the murder of Jews for many centuries, and until the Pope in 1965 said that was a sin. It wasn't true that the Jews killed Jesus. Think about the Inquisition with the church-inspired efforts to hurt the Jews, and so on and so forth, and the religious persecutions that go on throughout the world, the Protestants and Catholics in Northern Ireland, et cetera, et cetera. Now, is it on the whole, though, it really true? And I do this in the context of the Torah portion in Deuteronomy called V'etchanan, which we read in the synagogue this past week, which has the Ten Commandments and the Shema and the V'ahavta. It has the rules: don't murder, don't kill, don't steal, don't bear false witness, don't covet. There should be one God and no idols. And it has the paragraph of the V'ahavta: you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. You should instruct your children in religion. You should have signs about religion. Now, most people in the world are religious. They believe in a power greater than themselves. It seems like we're almost hardwired for it. But is it a net positive? Well, first of all, I want you to think about a world without, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." Are we really better off thinking that human beings have all the answers, even the best of human beings? I mean, think about the Nazi ideology. They thought they had the best ideology. They had a superior ideology. Racist slave owners, they think that they are representing the most noble in humankind. Who's to say, if you have no power greater than you, that when a human being says something, that's the best thing? You could just say, "I disagree." Who is he? Just another human being. And think about the mass movements of mass murder in the 20th century. They were not religious inspired. They were the Nazis, which killed 50 million, 100 million people. Mao Zedong in China, 50 million people. Stalin in Russia, 50 million people. Those were all socialists and communists who believed it was better for the society to mass murder people. They had no God, and that's what happens when you take God out of the equation. Now, it's true that we are facing a very daunting challenge from Islamic fundamentalists, and that's definitely giving religion a bad name. This whole idea that a woman who wears the wrong thing out on the street can be beat up and arrested by goon squads. That's terrible. And religious people doing bad things. But that's all the more so that religion has to be taught the very values of Judaism, of one God, and there's no devil. And so you're responsible for your deeds. And the Ten Commandments, and loving God with all your heart, soul, and might, to teach your children diligently to do good. That God, above all, according to Micah, wants to do justice and love mercy, and wants us to walk humbly with God. Imagine a world without those ideas. Now, there is in Judaism something also called civil Judaism. This is based on work by Robert Bellah about American civil religion. So a guy named Wutcher wrote the following 8 principles about what he called civil Judaism. And I agree with all of these. I just think it's except it's leaving out something important. Number 1 is the unity and distinctiveness of the Jewish people. Well, I agree with that. 2, the resultant responsibility of each Jew of the Jewish community collectively for the security and welfare of all Jews. I agree with that. 3, the centrality of the State of Israel as a symbol of this unity and mutual responsibility. I think most Jews would agree with that. 4, the enduring worth of the Jewish tradition and the importance of its perpetuation. Agree with that. 5, the persistence of threats, both internal and external, to the survival of the Jewish people and tradition. 6, tzedakah, charity, understood narrowly as philanthropy and more broadly as actions on behalf of justice, is a primary mandate of the Jewish value system. Completely agree with that. 7, the virtue of the active participation in society and its compatibility with good Jewishness. And 8, and this is the one I totally disagree with, but he says most American Jews do believe in, the relative insignificance of classic theological affirmations and of the individual's freedom of conscience with respect to most traditional norms of Jewish law. Well, obviously most Jewish Americans use their consciousness and their conscience to figure out what laws they want to keep and what laws they don't. That doesn't mean that that's classical Jewish tradition, but to say that the classical theological affirmations too, I probably would agree with a lot of his sentiments about some of the classic theological affirmations of having relative insignificance. I'm not an Orthodox and fundamentalist Jew. In fact, I know people who say, tell me the God you don't believe in, and that's probably the God I believe in. I don't believe in that God either. That there's a lot of room for discussion about what that higher power is. But the basic idea is there some force in the universe that has a greater brilliance and intelligence and understanding of humanity and for humanity than we do? And in some way imparted that in what the process we call revelation. Whether it's as the fundamentalists believe, which is word for word the Bible, or as the rest of us believe that it was generally inspired and the human beings continue to try to figure out. And so what human beings try and do then, classically, is to study and study and study. That's why the study of Torah is considered the most important commandment. To continually to bring into our hearts and souls the texts and the ideas of Judaism so that we can become more virtuous. Of course we're human beings and we're flawed and we make mistakes. That's why we repent. But to simply put it on balance, on one side a world without the Shema, without the idea of God being unified, without loving God with all your heart, soul, and might, without God commanding us to not murder, to not steal, to not covet, to not bear false witness. And if all we're left with are revering the best that's in humankind, or whatever human beings who are in control at the time say is the law, then I think we are doomed. And that's why ultimately I reject the idea that the world is better without religion, completely reject that thesis, and also that Judaism is better without God. I think that's nonsense.